Hey everyone, I'm Jay. Welcome to another episode of Journeys with Jay. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoyed the journey with me today. If you're not, thanks so much for coming back once again. In today's episode, join me as I explore the broadcast and exchange sections of the Information Age at the London Science Museum. The Information Age Gallery is found on the second floor of the museum. Information Age: 6 networks that changed our world. The Information Age Gallery is an incredible space that explores how 200 years of communication and information technology have shaped our world. Let's check it out. The gallery is arranged into 6 networks: cable, broadcast, exchange, constellation, web, and cell. Each area presents the technologies and infrastructure alongside the extraordinary stories of the people who created, used, and were affected by each new wave of change. In today's video, we'll explore the networks of broadcast and exchange. Let's start with exchange. The public call office, or kiosk, or phone booth, allowed everyone the opportunity to make phone calls. By the early 1950s, around 50,000 were installed in Britain. They were heavily used and queues were common. Their relative privacy, compared with the domestic phone, made them attractive to those who wished to keep their calls discreet. The telephone converts speech into electrical signals carried through wires and switched across the network by telephone exchanges. Subsequent telephone networks transmit digital signals over fiber optic cables, radio, microwave, or satellite links. The telephone gave rise to new forms of behavior and social etiquette, transforming working lives and relationships. Pedestal dial telephone, 1926. The solid back transmitter worked best when nearly upright. These designs were known as candlestick telephones. Improved transmitters were combined with the earpiece into a single headset. The plastic case created a sleek appearance, but the bell needed a separate box. Intercom telephones were not connected to the public network, but were solely for communicating within large buildings. Several types of simple automatic switching were developed. Later, standard exchange equipment was adapted so that all users could dial out. This intercom telephone with dial is from around 1903, and it was at Guy's Hospital in London. This was in use until 1932. In 1930s Britain, the conversion of manual exchanges to automatic marked a big investment in new equipment. The post office mounted extensive publicity campaigns to attract new customers. For many, using the telephone was a rare event, and the post office organized exhibitions where people could handle the new equipment and try dialing calls for themselves. School telephone, 1930. The post office produced portable demonstration telephone sets which could be taken to schools and colleges for promotional purposes. The automatic exchange comes to Britain. After investigating different systems, the post office installed Britain's first public automatic exchange at Epsom in May 1912. Only calls to other numbers on the same exchange were connected automatically. Calls to all other numbers still had to be handled by an operator. This is an example of a wall dial telephone used at Epsom in 1912. Users could choose between a wall telephone or a pedestal candlestick design. Selectors very similar to this were installed at Epson and several other exchanges during the early trials of automatic switching. Alman Strowger was a funeral undertaker in Kansas City, USA. He feared that operators at his local telephone exchange were putting customer calls through to a rival business and invented a rudimentary method of switching calls automatically to get around this problem. After several years' development, his step-by-step system was widely adopted around the world. Attempts to replace the human operator with automatic switching were made as early as 1879. The various devices tried over the next few decades were not fully successful. This equipment enabled two telephones at a branch exchange to be connected automatically by an operator at a central exchange. Strowger tried several different configurations of selector. The zither switch used two motion selectors, but the connecting wires were laid out in open rows. The early type of dial was quite complex electrically and required 5 wires to connect to the exchange. The PABX3 automatic exchange 1955-56. Electromechanical exchange equipment could be used to serve a very small number as well as thousands of people. This private automatic exchange connected only about 20 offices but operated in exactly the same way as the largest Strowger automatic exchanges on the public network. In the 1960s, British engineers opted to use pulse code modulation or PCM, the principle behind all digital electronics in telephone exchanges. The System X digital switching system soon became standard in Britain. The first telephone with keypad was introduced in 1977. This example was marketed as the Delta phone. Telephones created new opportunities for people to communicate without leaving their homes. They, however, also created challenges for people who had difficulties with sight, hearing, or speech. Developments in electronics enabled telephones to be adapted for different needs. One of the key technologies was speech synthesis, a way of generating speech using a computer. This device delivered pre-recorded messages selected by the user in response to incoming calls. This equipment was designed for people with hearing difficulties, who were able to send and receive phone calls using the keyboard and the illuminated display above it. Did you know that's what the letters in PBX, Private Branch Exchange, stand for? Or were you like me, today years old, when I found that out? Let me know in the comments. For much of the 20th century, Britain's telephone service was provided almost solely by, guess who? The post office. It offered a small range of standard telephones of rugged design, capable of long service, refurbishment, and mass production. Designs not approved by the post office could not be connected. In the 1970s, customer and political pressure weakened this stance. This 700 type telephone, circa 1959, had an all-purpose design capable of modification for its intended use. The post office introduced a luxury telephone in the mid-1960s. On early examples, the dial was illuminated by radioactive tritium gas. In 1977, the post office marked Queen Elizabeth II's Silver Jubilee with a new compact telephone in Balmoral blue. When fully digital exchanges were introduced, the star and hash or pound keys were added to the keypad to give access to many additional calling facilities. The forerunner of a new range of telephones for the 1980s, the Ambassador was designed for plug-and-socket installation. In the 1980s, responding to customer demand, British Telecom approved the introduction of a new range of telephones reflecting fashion, novelty, and technical innovation. The standard telephone dial worked by successively disconnecting and connecting the circuit to the exchange to deliver a series of electrical pulses to the selector, the same number as for the digit dialed. These were sent as the dial rotated back to the stop, pulled by a spring, so that the pulses were sent at an even rate. This is a model of the first permanent structure to be built after the Russian Revolution. The remarkable design was based on an innovative steel lattice structure. It provided the first radio programs to the Soviet Union and became symbolic of a new era of state communications. Radio and television transformed the way we receive news and entertainment. Broadcasting brought people together in their communities, as nations, and around the world, from major historical moments to live musical performances. This exhibit shows how the coronation of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II changed the history of the television industry in Britain. Displayed are some stories of those who watched the coronation. Although rapidly gaining in popularity, televisions were not found in every home by 1953. The coronation was experienced in a range of ways, by listening to the radio commentary, attending a public television viewing in a local town hall, or later by attending a cinema screening of the color film A Queen is Crowned. Many persons without a television experienced the coronation by listening to the radio. A crowd in New York watches the coronation on a display television. Showrooms were one of the ways viewers found to watch the American and Canadian rebroadcast of the coronation. At the heart of the Information Age Gallery is the aerial tuning inductor from Rugby Radio Station. This enormous structure resembles a gigantic hexagonal spider's web. On the 1st of January 1926, Rugby Radio Station began sending messages to the world. Its very long-wave, low-frequency radio signals could bend around the curvature of the Earth. Long wavelengths can also penetrate water, so Rugby Radio Station became a hub for encrypted military communications with ships and submarines. The aerial tuning inductor is an early use of thermionic valves used to amplify radio signals. They enable voice and later images to be sent from a single transmitter to millions of people at the same time. These beautiful, delicate glass objects have been replaced with smaller and more robust electronic components, but without them, the growth of telephone, broadcast, and computer networks would have been impossible. The BBC began broadcasting in Britain in 1922, and radio quickly became a familiar source of news and entertainment in the home. On a foggy November night in 1922, the words "This is 2LO calling" announced the arrival of the BBC. 2LO, the BBC's first transmitter, took words and music from studios in Savoy Hill and transmitted them to listeners at home. At this time, the BBC's reach was limited to London. This is an example of the type of equipment that would have been used by early amateur radio enthusiasts. Early radio receivers were often made by the radio amateurs themselves. Amateurs often transmitted speech or played records, as well as receiving transmissions from other experimenters. When using radio to communicate by voice was still relatively new, amateur radio operators often designed and built their own radio equipment. This is an example of a homemade radio from around 1922, the year that the BBC was formed, for communicating with other radio enthusiasts. Well, if you've reached this point, thanks so much for joining me on another episode of Journeys with Jay. Please like, comment, and if you haven't as yet, subscribe. Until next time, keep safe, God bless. It's your boy Saint J, out of here.